Thank you, everyone, for coming. I'm honored by your presence. Okay, I have my list here of what I want to cover, and it included many people asked me questions over the last day or two, and I'm trying to include it in there. If you have any questions, so do me a favor, jot it down and wait till the end, unless it's directly, unless I'm being unclear. And that way I'll know to get through the material. Not that I don't want to answer the question, but then I'll know to get through what I want to get through, and I know we covered it. Okay, so let's start from the beginning. I'm going to speak tonight specifically about kashering the kitchen. I'm not speaking about the size of the matzah, and I'm not speaking about davening. I'm speaking of the seder. I'm speaking about specifically kashering the kitchen. And I want to go through that, but before I do that, I just want to give one or two introductions. Some of these are a little bit high-level introductions because it's a high-level audience here. And I just want to make sure that we understand this in a deep way, not just throwing out a bunch of rules, which are hard to memorize sometimes. Number one, everybody knows that right before Pesach this year, next Thursday night, is B'dikas Chametz. Although the mitzvah of B'dikas Chametz takes place on Thursday night, the fact of the matter is that B'dikas Chametz starts now. B'dikas Chametz is really the mitzvah you're doing the whole time you're cleaning your house and cleaning your kitchen, assuming you're not just washing the windows, but you're looking for chametz. So that is all the mitzvah B'dikas Chametz. Since the Chachamim said that you have to do it on Thursday night, we only make a bracha on it on Thursday night. But just an interesting fact is that people say that the B'dikas Chametz has turned into sort of a kid's thing, a perfunctory thing where we hide some pieces of bread and we walk around with a candle. And is it really B'dikas Chametz? And if you're really adherent and machmir, so it should take 3-4 hours to do B'dikas Chametz. So I don't buy it because B'dikas Chametz probably by most of you has already started. It's not that it's 30 minutes or 4 hours. B'dikas Chametz usually takes a few weeks, and so therefore by the time you get to Pesach, just ask everyone to mute themselves.
Addressing the questions, in fact.
Let me see if I can. Okay, I muted everyone who's here. I apologize. But the fact of the matter is, by the time you get to B'dikas Chametz, so really your house is so laboratory clean that of course all you have to do is a perfunctory act of walking around with a candle and doing that final check. So you have to do it. I'm not saying you don't have to do it, but we shouldn't think that we're being makel on the B'dikas Chametz. We're being machmir to make sure everything really is clean. I would imagine at some time in our history, the tiny little houses, and they cleaned up the house maybe a day or two before Pesach, and the B'dikas Chametz was much more part of it than it is now. Just as a principle. I just want to start with this. The first part of getting rid of your chametz, the first thing to think about in terms of getting rid of your chametz is selling your chametz. The selling your chametz is part of the B'dikas Chametz, if you will. Selling your chametz means the following. It means that there is no prohibition in seeing chametz or even having chametz in your house. The prohibition is owning chametz. Lo yimatzeh lecha chametz, lo yira lecha chametz. It has to belong to you. So therefore, any chametz that you have, which could be a bottle of whiskey or it could be your whole house, if you sell it, then you don't have to clean it. You don't have to do any bedika on it. You don't have to do anything on it because it's not yours. In other words, we take the mechira very, very seriously. The serious part of the selling of the chametz doesn't take place so much when you fill out the form, that too, but it goes in front of a beis din. The beis din takes a few hours with a non-Jew, and it's a very, very serious mechira using every halachic every instrument that can possibly be used to sell the chametz. So what you want to do is, the first thing you want to do is figure out if there are things, if there are that you want to sell. What you have to do is put them all in one place. If you're going to sell a whole cabinet, so sell the whole cabinet, including the crumbs in there and everything, and you write on it machur lagoy, or sold with the chametz. It's important that you write this. That's not just a minhag. The reason for writing this is because they even sell stickers. I don't know if you need stickers, but they even sell stickers that say machur lagoy. The reason why that's important is because on the form that you fill out with me, so even though it says list the chametz that you have, the fact of the matter is, and I get this call all the time, like I forgot to list my upstairs closet or something. So it doesn't make any difference, because what does make a difference is that if, let's say, a non-Jew would come into your house to collect his chametz or her chametz, whatever the case might be, so then what happens is that they can see immediately what belongs to them and what doesn't belong to them. Yeah. So it's not so important for me that it's on the list as it is that it's marked off in your house. So what you want to do is take all the chametz you're going to sell and put it in one or two places and write a machur lagoy. If you're not going to use a certain room, then don't clean it. You don't have to clean it. Don't have to check it. You don't have to do bedika. Just write on a machur lagoy. If you're going away for Pesach, if you want, you can sell your whole house. And you don't have to do anything except for sell your house. Just say the whole house, and on the, as soon as you walk in the front door, you write a little sign that says this whole house, kol habayit hazeh, machur lagoy, and that's fine. That being said, if you are around Thursday night, you're not in some Pesach hotel or something, so the minhag Yisrael is to do a bedika. So what you should do is leave one little part. It could be your front foyer, or one little part that's not machur lagoy, and do a bedika there, and that way you're mekayim the mitzvah bedikas chametz. But you don't have to worry about a couple of things, and this is very important for what we're talking about tonight. You don't have to clean your house if you're going to sell it. You don't have to clean the cabinet if you're going to sell it. People say, "Well, I can't sell my crumbs. Who's buying crumbs?" The answer is you're not buying the crumbs. You're buying the cabinet, the dishes, everything that's in that cabinet belongs to a guy. You're selling everything. At one time, I think I mentioned this last year. I guess a lot of what I'm saying I mentioned last year, because most things don't change. But what I used to think at one point was that, well, you can't sell crumbs, so wash everything before you put it away. But then I had a discussion with Rav David Feinstein, Olav Shalom, and he explained to me that, of course, you can't sell crumbs, but you can sell a whole cabinet. Many people say, well, you shouldn't sell your silverware, your dishes to a guy, because then when you get it back after Pesach, then it belonged to a guy, so you have to toivel it. That's not true either. Rav David Feinstein explained to me, because you only have to toivel things, cookingware and kitchenware, if it came from a guy, if the non-Jew actually had access to it. But if you didn't have any access to it, so then it doesn't require any tevilah. So that's the thing to do. Whatever you're going to close off, just close off. Somebody today asked me, don't remember who, I'm sorry. Somebody here asked me, well, they're leaving their house, they're going to a Pesach hotel, and they don't want to clean their whole house. Obviously, nobody wants to really clean their whole house, but people want to sleep there. So what's the rule with people sleeping there? So it's a simple rule. If people are sleeping there, then you can't sell that room to a guy. So you can't have it both ways, but you can close off the kitchen. You can close off the dining room. You can just really narrow it down to the entrance to that bedroom or two bedrooms if you want to. But those rooms do need to be cleaned out, and those rooms do, because if it belongs to the guy, then you can't let people sleep there. So that's how that works. Okay, am I clear with that? So that's what's important. So we're narrowing everything down right now. Let's say you own an apartment in Florida or in Tiberia or Eilat or wherever it might be. So again, you don't have, just sell the whole thing. Just sell the whole thing. Don't even think about it. And I included my Mechiras Chametz, by the way. If people have stocks in Nabisco or in something that has chametz, that's all sold with the chametz. That's all sold with the chametz, everything. And that's very important. Same thing as with an office, by the way. If you have an office, So then that office, you or your husband has an office, so that office is also yours and has to be closed for Pesach. But if you're not going to be in that office, just sell the whole thing. And even if you're not going to sell the whole thing, you can sell the desk with the drawers and just write on it, Machur Lagoy. Another fundamental principle is the definition of chametz, and this is an important refresher course for everybody here. I'm sure you all know this, but chametz, what is the definition of chametz? Chametz has to come from one of the 5 grains listed in the Torah, which are wheat, spelt, those are 2 very common things, rye, oats, like oatmeal, and barley. Those are your 5, did I say 5? Yeah, those are the 5 grains. That, here's how this works, very important. Those are 5 grains that you can make matzah from. So this the Gemara learns as from the pasuk, that the only thing that can become chametz is something that you can use for matzah. So being that you can make spelt matzahs or rye matzahs or oat matzahs, so therefore those things can be chametz. Why isn't matzah chametz if wheat is chametz and rye is chametz? So the answer is, of course, wheat is not chametz. But any of these 5 grains that have come into contact with water for 18 minutes or above, it becomes chametz. What's a matzah? A matzah is using these very same 5 grains and not letting it come into contact with any water at all, anything wet, not even leaving it alone in case there's any kind of arising in it for 18 minutes. So so matzah is made out of flour, and that's fine. That's obviously kosher Pesach. But the flour that you have in your house, let's say, that's not kosher Pesach. Why? It's wheat. All it is ground up wheat. So the answer is it's not just ground up wheat. It's ground up wheat which has been washed in water, and that's why it looks so nice like it does. Even if you buy it in a health food store, it's been washed. So wheat and spelt and rye and all the things that you buy, unless you bought a special from a matzah bakery, is all chametz already. So if you want an example of chametz gamur, it's a bag of flour. A bag of flour is absolute chametz. So that's chametz, and everything we're going to speak about in the next few minutes has to do with chametz or kitniyos. What's kitniyos? Kitniyos is about 700 years ago. For whatever reason that they had at that time, it's not a history class. The Chachmei Ashkenaz, the Rabbanim of the Ashkenazic communities, said that we're going to consider, I guess people were getting where things were mixed one into the other. And so they said, let's take everything that you can make flour out of. In other words, if you grind this up, it'll look something like flour, and you can technically bake with it. People that are allergic to wheat and rye, like learn how to use these other items as kitniyos. So everyone says kitniyos is legumes. I'm not 100% sure if legumes covers it all, or even if all legumes are kitniyos. Kitniyos, the word kitniyos means katan, little things that can be dried out and turned into flour. And those, of course, if you're an Ashkenazi, which I presume most of the people here are going with the minhag of Ashkenaz, so kitniyos is considered as if it's chametz. Now, it's not really chametz in the sense that it has different rules, but we don't eat it on Pesach. Maybe you're even allowed to own kitniyos. Like it could be you don't have to sell your kitniyos, but we do. We just put it with the chametz and we consider it to be chametz. Now, here's the important thing about that these Ashkenazic rabbis, and by the way, the Sephardim never accepted this, and that's why I think the majority of the state of Israel, the population, the Jewish population of Israel, is Sephardim, and they walk around eating popcorn and rice and all the things that we think are like chametz. So they just never accepted upon themselves the minhag of kitniyos. What's important to know about this is the following: that kitniyos, here's the list. And either memorize this or write this down. Kitniyos is rice, all kinds of beans, a little bit later, corn, fenugreek, which we call here chilba, flaxseed, mustard, peas. Now, that's a pretty complete list of what was around 700 years ago, and therefore the Rabbanim of Poland and Hungary and Litva and Romania and those countries said, Russia, Ukraine, said that let's consider this to be as chametz. Comes the great Rav Moshe Feinstein, Zecher Tzadik Livracha. And by the way, when I was very young, I heard a shir on Hagalas Pesach from Rav Moshe Feinstein. And it changed everything I think about this, not just the subject of Kitniyos, but everything that we're going to talk about tonight, Kashering. He gave us a very, very deep shir that I went to in MTJ. And I learned a tremendous amount, and that's what I'm sharing with you. I'm sure there's other people that argue with him, and I'm sure there's all kinds of machlokas, but Rav Moshe was the Gadol Hador, and that's how we're paskening here tonight, according to Rav Moshe. Any of these things, by the way, if you have any minhagim in your family, and they're legitimate, not just mishigas you heard, but if it's really a minhag in your family, so then keep your minhag. I'm not arguing with minhagim. I'm just saying what's halacha. Rav Moshe Feinstein said the following: that there are items which didn't exist as an edible item 700 years ago. The classic example of this is potatoes. See, when I was a yeshiva bacher, the Badatz Eida Charedis put up signs all over, and they said that potato starch is kitniyos. And what they meant by that was that why shouldn't it be kitniyos? If you take a potato and you make starch out of it, you can make flour out of it, you can bake with it, you can make cookies, you can make cake, you can make bread. In their thinking at that time, it was that potatoes should be kitniyos also, not the potato itself so much, but what comes out of the potato. It was exactly on that Rav Moshe Feinstein commented that nobody ate a potato until a couple hundred years ago. There was no such thing as eating potatoes until a couple hundred years ago. It was Michael Behema. It wasn't something that anybody knew about. You can Google exactly the history of potatoes if you are really interested. But it's a recent food and a very popular food. I mean, today it's the basis of every McDonald's, every Burger King is fries. But it's a new fruit. So said Rav Moshe that therefore there is nothing that you can do to a potato that could turn it into kitniyos because it wasn't part of the original gzeira. He even made the comment. He says, if I would have been there, that's what he said. I'm sure Rav Moshe by Tchias HaMesim will be sitting on the Sanhedrin. But he said if he would have been there, he would not have even said, he wouldn't have voted for kitniyos altogether. But certainly, you don't have to make things kitniyos, which aren't in that original gzeira. He speaks about corn. Corn was also animal food until quite recently. But he said that this is what he said. He said, "Kiblu Yisrael," that Klal Yisrael has already makabel on themselves. Ashkenazic Jewry has already been makabel on themselves not to eat corn on Pesach. So that's like an extra chumrah, which, as far as I know, is the only extra chumrah in terms of kitniyos. So kitniyos is let me just say the list again. Kitniyos refers specifically to rice, beans, all kinds of beans, corn, fenugreek, which I've gotten into lately, flaxseed, mustard, and peas. That's the list, and that's the kitniyos. Now, these foods, you might not eat peas, but these foods appear in a lot of other foods, obviously. So therefore, in other words, peas are a great source of protein, etc. These are fillers, these are binders. Kitniyos are used. The obvious example is corn syrup. So corn syrup is a binder almost in every tablet or every pill that you're going to take, which we have to talk about. So these are things that it's not so much that you're eating corn or popcorn or even beans, but it's that this is why the Ashkenazi Kosher is very, very complicated. I don't think it's so complicated because of Chametz. It's complicated because of Kitniyos. So for Sephardic Jewry, maybe we should figure out in the next year how to convert to Sephardic. But in Sephardic Jewry, Pesach is not so complicated. You just don't make Chametz, and that's the end of the story. There's another chumrah, and that's this is what Rav Moshe spoke about Does Yotze Min HaKitniyos, was that part of the original decree? Yotze Min HaKitniyos is Kitniyos extract. Obvious example of that is oil. So is a Yotze Min HaKitniyos usher? Are you allowed to use Kitniyos oil on Pesach? And Rav Moshe Feinstein said the following. He says, we're machmer. Rav Kook, by the way, alav shalom, said that you're allowed to use any oil that comes from Kitniyos. I don't want to mix you up, but I'm just saying that's what Rav Kook said. It's important to know that if you know somebody who's a follower of Rav Kook, so they use all the oils, as long as it's kosher Pesach, obviously. They use all the oils. Rav Moshe said we should be machmer on oils as long as the basic ingredient of that oil was around 700 years ago. Here's another very important example, rapeseed, or what we call canola oil. So that's a very new product. I think World War I. I think they worked out rapeseed oil or canola oil. It's very, very popular. It's probably very unhealthy. I don't know, that's a machlokas. But canola oil, as Rav Moshe said, it was not part, rape seeds were not part of what they spoke about. So therefore, he didn't see any reason not to use canola oil. He also said you could use peanut oil on Pesach, because who said that that peanuts are Kitniyos? Tachlis is like this, that it's my opinion, and again, if you have a different minhag, so you're welcome to be machmer as much as you want. But the way I understand it is that you can use, for instance, canola oil on Pesach, but you have to make sure it's kosher Pesach. So how do you make sure it's kosher Pesach? The answer is, if it has a good Sephardic hechsher on it, so that's enough. Let's say it has a Vadat Space Yosef hechsher on it, on canola oil. That's enough to tell you that there's no chametz in it at all. It's only a question of kitniyos. So for kitniyos, rapeseeds aren't kitniyos, and maybe even if they were, the oil that comes out of it is not kitniyos. The other place where you find kitniyos a lot, and let me mention this, is in baby formula, or things that you make baby bottles out of, things like that. So that can also be kitniyos, but again, the Rabbanim never assered kitniyos for anybody who's under 9 years old. So part of the minhag is 9 years old above. Now, for all practical purposes, you shouldn't have kitniyos in your house, but if it's in a baby bottle and it's for a baby, so we don't have to be machmer on kitniyos. The only thing is, if this Rav Scheinberg taught me that if you are going to, let's say, wash out something for the baby, kitniyos, and it's not like the olden days where you make formula and all that, like you just buy the stuff, right? But I forgot already. But if you wash out the Keilim that you use for kitniyos, you should wash it out in a different sink than in your regular sink. In other words, keep the kitniyos separate, because it'll be too confusing for us and for the kids. But that's an extra thing. If you washed out a kitniyos bottle in your sink, nothing happened. Let's get to, is there any questions so far? Because it's going on to the Kashering now.
Yeah, Rabbi Haber, did you say up until 9 years old, kids can eat kitniyot?
Kids, the gzeira was, don't forget the hunger of the times, the famine of the times. So they never made a gzeira for 9 years old and above. We for 9 years, I should say, for 9 years old and below. We tend to be machmer because we chinuch. But that's what it is. It's chinuch. It's not that it's chametz or it's usher. It's chinuch. So 9 years old is the general age for chinuch. Yeah, that's
okay. Thank you.
Let's talk about kashering. If you have chametz, and we're talking about chametz, something that came from the 5 grains. If you have chametz, if you own chametz, you have to get rid of it. You certainly can't cook in a pot, which is chametz. Now, let me explain 2 things. You can say, I know you know this, but I just want to explain it to get the lumdas clear. You can say, look, I washed my pot, I scrubbed my pot, where's the chametz? There's no chametz there. So the answer is the chametz comes in 2 forms. Chametz comes in actual chametz, like a piece of bread, and chametz comes in tam. Tam means, this is something that probably the Torah were the first to say, and Chazal were the first to point out, that there's such a thing as something treif, or something chametz, or something milchix, or something fleishix, even if you don't see it, even if you can't, you scrubbed it all out, the taste of it still absorbed into the item which you're using, most items. So what you end up with here is what's called in the Gemara tam ki ikr. We went from a pasuk that if something has the tam of something, then that's already considered. Also, many years ago, I came across a bakery that when I lived in Buffalo, New York, came across a bakery. I was trying to make things kosher then, so people have something to eat. So there was a health food bakery, and I was put onto them because they were dead against any kind of animal products. So, like, what could be bad if there's no animal products? We'll go in there, just make sure there's no animal products. It was strictly all vegetable and everything else, and they were willing to switch to kosher kosher vegetable oil. Just a quick story, which is telling. These are a bunch of hippies. It was called the Yeast West Bakery. That's what it was called. Downtown Buffalo. I was talking about a few decades ago. Anyways, I went in there and it was as pure can be. There wasn't an ingredient there that was treif in the whole place. It was basically kosher. But then I looked and I thought about it and I said, one second, how do you grease your pans? And interestingly, they weren't careful with how they greased the pans. Meaning they didn't grease it with lard, but they certainly weren't careful that it was absolutely no animal. They didn't use only OU kosher oil. So I said to them that you have to listen. I don't know how you grease these pans. We're going to have to kasher all the baking pans, right? That's what we're going to have to do, and then the whole thing is kosher. They were appalled at the possibility that they might be using an animal product somewhere in there. But then when they looked back at their receipts and their invoices, they saw that they did use some. I showed them that there might have been some animal product there. And here's the point that I want to make tonight: they refused to kosher it. They refused to let me kosher their baking pans. And the reason they said was not because they were anti-Semites. The reason they wouldn't let me kosher their baking pans is because they said, we've spent years seasoning these pans. Now, I don't know anything about baking, but they were not willing to allow them. They said the taste, this is exactly what they said. So it's not just the Torah. The taste goes into the bread. It's very important. We would not buy new pans. This is our neches, that we have these seasoned pans. And therefore that place never became kosher. But you see, the idea is that pots and pans and ovens, they all get a certain tam. In our case, what we're talking about tonight is chametz, and therefore you have to kosher it. We never kosher active chametz. What's active chametz? Meaning, here's another rule to note. A rule to note. When we say something became milchix or fleishix or treif or chametz, so that taste only remains a good taste according to halacha, not according to the East West Bakery, but it only becomes a good taste for 24 hours. After that, it's called a tam pagum, and a tam pagum is okay. Came the Rabbanan, they said, look, don't use tam pagum either, better to kasher it. But that's midrabanan, that's not midoraisa. Yeah? So therefore comes the halacha, and the halacha says as follows. You're not allowed to kasher anything that hasn't sat unused for 24 hours. So what's very, very important over here is that when you get involved with your kashering, let's say it's Erev Pesach, let's say it's Wednesday Erev Pesach, or Thursday Erev Pesach, you need to make sure, or now, whenever you do it, you have to make sure that you didn't use the utensil that you're going to kasher for 24 hours. It can sit there. If it had cold water on it, it's okay. But if it got hot at all, we don't kasher. We only kasher things which is midrabanan. This is a very, very important thing that people don't know. You can never kasher things on Pesach itself. This is part of the reason. You can only kasher it 24 hours after it's been used. So you have to make sure, think of yourself, when you're going to kasher your oven. Most people do kasher their oven. When am I going to kasher my oven? And 24 hours, back yourselves up 24 hours and make sure you don't use it for 24 hours before you turn over your kitchen and make it into a Pesach kitchen, Pesach utensils. And now, I said before that chametz comes in two ways. Chametz comes in the tam, and that which absorbed into the utensil, and chametz comes as chametz, chametz, food. Not necessarily food you're going to eat, but chametz. Let me give you two terms. You can remember them if you want. There's chametz balua and chametz davuk. Chametz balua means chametz you don't see. You don't feel. You don't know it's there. The only reason you know it's there is because you know you cooked macaroni in this pot, and you know it's chametz stick. But you're clean. You don't. That's called chametz balua. Chametz davuk is when there's actually chametz there. So, for instance, it's very possible that although you probably keep very clean homes, but it's very possible that in your oven, not only is there chametz balua, but there might be chametz davuk also, because like how careful, if it's not Erev Pesach, do we clean every nick and cranny of our oven to make sure there's no chametz davuk. Here's the important difference, and if you know this, you really know everything. Everything else is just technical and details. Chametz, you cannot kasher chametz davuk. You can't kasher real chametz. Like, think to yourself about taking a piece of bread and pouring boiling hot water on it. It's still chametz, yeah? Otherwise, spaghetti will never be chametz. So you can't kasher real chametz. The only thing you can kasher is chametz balua, which is tam. A very important distinction, which I find people don't catch. So there's two things. There's chumras and kulas both ways. If it's chametz balua, so then we go through what I'm going to describe tonight of how to kasher it. If it's chametz davuk, you have to clean it, or alternatively, you have to destroy it. Destroy it means that it's not even edible to a dog. It's not food. You've taken away all the food value out of it. There's a number of ways to do that. So when it comes to chametz, you can kasher from today to tomorrow. It's not going to do anything. You have to actually destroy it. When it comes to tam, you can clean it from today till tomorrow, and it's not going to do anything. You have to kasher it. So there's really two steps in every kashering sequence, and that is not just you have to make sure it's clean. Of course, you have to make sure it's clean, but there's two things that are going on here. One is you have to get rid of or destroy the chametz, the actual chametz, which means that, like, even in your pots and pans, there might be, like, around the corners or under the lid or something like that, under the, not the lid, what's it called, the lip. Under the lip, there might be chametz. Look, if you're making pasta and it boils over, so now you have chametz under the lip. That's actual chametz. That's not the taste of chametz. So you have a problem. Easiest thing, by the way, is to get Pesach Keilim. Just we're talking about some things you can't just get a Pesach one, like an oven or a countertop, or for that matter, a pot. If you like a particular pot or you can't afford a new pot. So there is a way to kasher it, but the very first thing that has to be done is you have to get rid of the actual chametz, let's say, that's in the lip or in the handles or wherever it might be, and certainly in the grates of your oven, because if something boils over, you've got chametz all over it. How do you get rid of it? So there's two ways. We're not talking about kashering now, we're talking about clean. The distinction is clear? How do you get rid of actual chametz? So one way is you destroy it. That destruction process is called, in halacha, libun. Libun refers to the color something becomes when you heat it enough. It becomes like an ashen color, like a gray, white eventually. That when you heat metal, it turns blue, it turns green, purple, then it becomes like an ashen gray. That's libun. We're not experts in the colors these days, unless you're a scientist. So what we say is that if it's hot enough, if you made something hot enough that that it can, let's say, put a piece of paper next to it or even a match, and it ignites it, that's called libun. That's the way we know if something is libun or not. So one way to do it is through libun, which would mean basically that you're taking, let's say, a blowtorch, and you're taking all the nicks and crannies of your pot, and you're destroying it with fire. This it says in the Chumash to do. Kol asher yavai be'esh. If something came about through fire, get rid of this. That's libun is a destructive process. After you cleaned it out and there's no edible chametz, now we have to worry about the tam which absorbed into the pots and pans and oven and sink and countertops. So for that, we kasher. Another way to destroy, and here's the modern trick, another way to destroy chametz is to make it, is to destroy it by like spritzing something caustic on it. So let's say you put Easy Off or St. Moritz onto the chametz. So now you don't want to eat that chametz. It's not only poison, it actually do the acid and the caustic aspect of it actually destroy it. So so that's how you get rid of chametz. The right way to get rid of chametz is by cleaning it. But if there's a place where you say, I just can't clean it anymore, like maybe in the lip of the pot, there's chametz. So then you either go at it with a libun, which is a blowtorch, or you just kill it all with some kind of a caustic cleanser. In order for chametz, something to become chametz, in order for chametz to transfer, here's a good example of what everything I'm saying brings it all home. In order for taste, tam, I'm going back and forth, chametz davuk, chametz balua. In order for chametz davuk to turn into tam, it has to be two things. First of all, you need heat. If you don't have heat, it doesn't transfer. That's what Chazal taught us. Besides for heat, it has to be wet. It has to have a liquid aspect to it, something that's wet. You touch it, it's wet. So in other words, in order for something to become chametz, it had to have a contact with chametz that was wet and heat. So a pot you cook in, it's hot and wet. What's an example of something that never gets hot, but it could be chametz stick? Might get wet, it's got chametz, let's say the refrigerator. So your refrigerator, and here's our first appliance of the evening, a refrigerator does not get hot. It doesn't get hot. So therefore, you don't have, it doesn't have any tam. There's no taste, excuse me, of chametz that went into your refrigerator. That being said, there may be many crumbs in your refrigerator, and there may be much chametz. There might be cookies in your refrigerator. So you got to get rid of the chametz. You don't want to use a blowtorch probably in your refrigerator. Doesn't sound right to me. So the right thing to do is to spray it, like to clean it as best as you can, and then to spray it with, let's say, Windex. So Windex, or whatever the blue stuff is in this country. So Windex is a material which makes a food item inedible. So not just enough Windex to clean, but like, you don't have to use a half a bottle, but actually make the chametz, saturate the chametz with Windex, and then you could just clean out. You don't have to worry about it. Refrigerators used to be a lot more difficult and more complicated because when I was a kid, refrigerators had like these grates in them, and everybody was always worried about the grates and covering them with aluminum foil. Most people don't have grates in the refrigerator because when you made Aliyah, you probably bought a new refrigerator. And refrigerators all have glass. So glass, you wipe off the glass. What about all the, like the plastic part that holds the glass and everything? Yes, this could be a problem. So what you have to do is clean it. And what's hard to clean, what's like pashut impossible, I don't know if you have to take apart your whole refrigerator. But although my house, it takes apart the refrigerator, but I don't know if you have to take apart the refrigerator. What you have to do is clean it the best you can and then spritz it. And now you have no chametz in your refrigerator. So you just wash it down very well. There's no real inyan of lining your refrigerator. A lot of people put something down because there's a period of time for a day or two where maybe you have some chametz in the refrigerator and you want the refrigerator to Pesach. So, okay, there you wrap it, there you line it. But in terms of kashering it and cleaning it, there's no inyan of lining it. That's talking about everything I've been talking about right now is getting rid of actual chametz. Assuming you do this sometime in the next couple of weeks. So now you don't have to do a b'dikas chametz with a candle in your refrigerator because it's b'cheskas baduk. So now what about tam? So we said there's no tam in the refrigerator. But by the way, people ask me like, well, sometimes you take a hot pot of chicken soup off the blech, let's say, and you put it straight in the oven because you want to go in the refrigerator because you want to go to sleep. So first of all, that can only make the refrigerator chametz if it has to, first of all, be really hot, but also it's dry on the outside. So it would have to be wet in order to transfer. Usually you're transferring onto glass, which is not a problem in any case, which I'll explain in a couple of minutes. And even then, even if you did do that, the only way it would be a problem if then you took another Pesach ticket pot, which was hot and wet, and put it in the exact same place. So now you've got a transfer going on. Otherwise, this is not something you have to worry about. How do you get tam out of something when the taste went in and it was hot and wet? This is a new concept. It's not called libun. This is called hagala. You hear about Hagalas Keilim? That's not to get rid of chametz. It's to get rid of the taste of the chametz that was balua, that absorbed into the item the utensil that you're kashering it. The word hagala means, by the way, to extract. Anything that absorbed into it because it was hot and wet, you are now extracting. That's called hagala. And I'm going to explain how to kasher the different things in your kitchen. I presume it's mostly in your kitchen, maybe your barbecue, that you have to kasher, either with libun or with hagala. Libun is to get rid of chametz. Hagala is to get rid of the tam, the taste of the chametz. Am I clear so far? Good. I saw at least one person saying yes. Okay. Thank you for that. There's a third way to kasher, and then I'm going to get into the details. There's libun, hagala, and then there's a third way called Libun Kal. Libun Kal means a light libun, where what Libun Kal is, it's a misnomer. It's not really destroying anything. Libun Kal is you doing hagala, but without water, you're using only heat. This is very, very important. When you're using, here's what the Chumash says in Bamidbar, Perek Lamed Aleph. It says that the principle is, as Rashi explains, kibolo kach polta, that the same way the taste got into a utensil, so that's the same way that you're going to get the taste out of that utensil. Kibolo, like it went in, kach polto, that's how you extract it. So hagala always has to be the same way that you got it in, that's how you got it out. An important example of this, I'm sorry for jumping around a little bit, but not every pot do you boil water in. For instance, your sink, most people don't boil water in their sink. You might take a pot of hot water from pasta and spill it in your sink, but that's a little bit different. So then the way you kasher that is different than the way you kasher the pot itself, because the pot actually cooked pasta. And here it's what's called an iri kli rishon, just like on Shabbos, but the sink is already a kli sheni to that pasta water. Yes. So therefore, it's kasher differently. The principle is kibolo kach polta. Usually that's done with hot water. Let's say you have an oven. Well, you probably do have an oven. Let's say you want to kasher an oven. So the oven, you're not going to pour boiling hot water all over your oven. impractical. You can't pour water up. How do you pour? You can't do it. It's not so easy, by the way, to blowtorch your oven either. Like even if you want to be like really machmir and like go at it with a blowtorch, I don't know if that's a chumrah or that's a kula, because when you're blowtorching your oven, that means you're guaranteeing that I've hit every square centimeter of that oven with my blowtorch for about a minute. So to really kosher an oven with a blowtorch, you're talking about a 3-4 hour ceremony. I know that the Chabadnikim, when they kosher an oven, they like to use a blowtorch. That's because they have a chumrah of the Rav Shulchan Aruch, but we don't have that chumrah. What do we do in an oven? And I'm going to start with the oven. By the way, last year when I spoke about this, I ended with the oven and I ran out of time. So I'm flipping around my whole order. I looked at my notes and I'm flipping around the whole order because I want to make sure I get to everything. What's the practical way to kosher your oven? First thing is, you have to clean it. You can't kosher chametz. So you have to clean it. How do you clean it? You take some kind of a caustic material. You kill and loosen up every drop of chametz that's in there, and you scrub it. You clean it so that there's no chametz there. Then you wait 24 hours and you kosher it, which I will describe. Parentheses, if you are from the lucky few that have a self-cleaning oven, so a self-cleaning oven is a self-koshering oven. The temperature inside that oven gets to something like 1600 degrees Fahrenheit or something like that. And it's dangerous if you keep the regulations. It's got to have a lock on it and all kinds of things. It's a dangerous thing. But if you self-clean an oven, so you've self-koshered the oven. So what I'm addressing now is if you don't have a self-cleaning oven. If you have a self-cleaning oven, not only does it clean the oven, but if you are so brave, you can put other things in your oven and kosher it that way also. I mean, I wouldn't put a plastic spoon in there, but you can put, if you have, let's say, metal grates or something like that, you can put it in the oven. It will ruin the finish, and it'll maybe make it shape differently because it's so hot. But it does kosher it. Don't do it if you have like handles and stuff on your pot because it'll melt them. A self-cleaning oven is made to withstand that type of heat. So self-cleaning oven is not our discussion now because self-cleaning oven is self-koshering oven, period. Let's say you don't have a self-cleaning oven. So again, you put your St. Moritz onto the oven. You've killed all the actual chametz that's there. And now you have to scrub it because even if you have char or ash or something like that, it's going to be a problem, not because it's chametz, but because you can't kosher something that's dirty. With any kind of dirt, let's say it would be rust. You can't kosher something that has rust on it. You can't kosher something that has sand on it. So now you've got all this, caustic, inedible stuff, but it does make a chatzitza between you and koshering it. So now you have to get it completely clean. Let's take a break for a second. How do you know if it's completely clean? And the answer is very simple. You can look at it with a flashlight. You can see if it's clean, but there's an easier way. Because in Shulchan Aruch says that you're allowed to do a bedikas chametz with your hand. Mishnah Berurah brings this. It means like, let's say there's a corner where you can't get your candle. You can't really check it. So what you're allowed to do is take your hand, put it in that corner, and feel if there's any chametz or any rough items at all. So you could do bedikas chametz and cleaning for chametz. You could check something with your hand. So what you have to do is after you clean your oven, you open the oven and you take your hand, let it cool off first, but you take your hand and you put your hand over every inch of the oven. And if you feel any rough spots, you need to get rid of them. Bottom, top, everything. You feel any rough spots. Now, from my experience, we're not talking about stains, we're not talking about spots, we're not talking about burnt marks, we're talking about residue. There's actual stuff there. So to my experience, it's very difficult to get rid of all of that. That's the truth. Especially, which I see, and my experience involves people bringing these things to my house for a week. Often, not their ovens, but let's say the oven grates. So the oven grate, I know that it's very difficult to get like where the metal meets the metal. It's very difficult to get it. So you can know for sure it's a stain, but it's not actually something you can feel. So what do you do with that? So there's two answers. One is you can get new grates, mahadran and a mahadran. The other way you can do it is you can cover it with aluminum foil. Just cover it and there's no access to it. The food doesn't touch it. A third thing you can do is you can blowtorch it, which is much easier than it sounds. Blowtorch they sell in the hardware store, and you'll see if you hit those corners with the blowtorch. I enjoy doing this. If you hit the trouble spots with a blowtorch, you'll see that all of a sudden they burn, and all of a sudden they fly off, and you can just wipe it right off. Then. So we've taken care of. If I'm unclear, ask me about this in a minute. But I think I'm being clear. So what you've done is you've gotten rid of either with a self-cleaning oven or with scrubbing. You've gotten rid of all the chatzitza, if you will, that's in your oven. Now you still have to kasher it. You didn't kasher it yet. So how do you kasher? How do you get the tam, the taste, that non-seeable taste that absorbed into the walls of the oven? That you need a hagala. As I said before, you can't do a hagala in the oven. You can't pour water all over the place. So what you do is what's called a libun kal. A libun kal is a hagala. What does that mean? That you use the principle of kibolo kach polto. Like it went in, that's how it goes out. So you take your clean oven, and this is what the Rabbanim Yaacov told us we can do. You take your clean oven after you wait 24 hours, because you can't kasher taste which is there for 24 hours. You then turn the oven on to its highest temperature, which usually on most ovens says broil, and you leave it on like that for 40 minutes. So you've taken a clean oven, now you have to deal with the tam of the oven, and you get it out by heating it up. That's the same thing and has all the same halachas as pouring boiling hot water on something that you have to kasher. Anything unclear to this point?
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
What happens if there's like ash or like actual residue that you really can't get off?
You cover it with aluminum foil.
What if it's like the bottom of the oven? Like for safety, I don't know.
Yeah, for safety, what? What do you mean?
Like, this is only my second time making Pesach, so I don't know, but is this safe to put the aluminum foil on the bottom of the oven?
Oh, no. I don't know. You got to find out from the manufacturer. But if you put like stuff on it, like easy off kind of stuff on it, and you let it sit and you follow the instructions, usually with a scraper, it does come right off. And you can get it to the point where you don't feel the chametz. If not, then you can't really kasher it. You can't really kasher it. But I personally, I just tell you that doing this for 40 some years, I've never seen that to be the case. And this doesn't have to take hours and hours and hours. I mean, if you want it to take hours and hours, you can, but it doesn't have to take hours and hours. It has to take a half hour to clean out your oven.
Thank you.
I'm going to get back because I don't know that everybody has one, but a convection oven works a little bit differently. And but I don't want to spend a lot of time on it now because maybe I mean, give me a quick show of hands. How many people have a convection oven? I don't see any hands.
Is the convection oven the oven that has the fan in the back of it?
Yeah, but it also
Okay,
has.
I have that.
It also has a setting that says convection or something like that.
That I don't know because there's just dots and I
Oh.
have no clue. I
And you
know exactly
You
where I
probably cleaned it so well for Pesach, you can't even see those dots anymore. Okay, so I will try to speak about that in a minute, but I want to get to the main things. There are certain, you can kosher almost everything, by the way, as long as it's made out of the items that the Torah says you can kosher, which is basically metal. You can kosher stone. Here's one thing you might not know. You can kosher wood. That means like let's say you have a wooden spoon that you use to stir the spaghetti sauce and it's all red. You can kosher that. And the fact that it's stained inside and it's turned colored, it's discolored, that doesn't mean you can't kosher it. You can kosher wood, you can kosher your cutting board as long as it's clean. Wood is a kosherable item. What's not kosherable is really one thing which equals two, which is ceramic. You can't kosher ceramic, as it says right in the Chumash, that kol kli cheres, that if you have something which is kli cheres, it's a you can't kosher it. Porcelain, ceramic, you can't kosher those things. If you have a porcelain sink, like a white sink, as opposed to a stainless steel sink, you can't kosher that sink. You just can't kosher it. You have to cover it. You have to put inserts in it. When people are doing their kitchen, if they allow me my opinion, I beg them not to get ceramic sinks, even if the decorator says to get them. It's not a good thing to get. Now, what falls into the category of ceramics on Pesach only is plastic. Because plastic, or any item which is crafted out of polymer, it's unclear. It doesn't have a din, because it wasn't around in the time of the Gemara. So I'm not sure how to look at plastic. So now plastic, by the way, comes in a million different grades. I know people think about it so much, but like you could say, well, plastic, like it doesn't last very long, it breaks, it stains easily. I just want to point out to you that bulletproof vests are made out of plastic. Airplane windows are made out of plastic. Plastic could be a very non-porous material, but nevertheless, when it comes to Pesach, since we don't know how to look at plastic, we don't kosher plastic. You can kosher it sometimes all year round, but plastic includes, and here's the thing, plastic includes your formica counters. That's a big one. I mean, formica is plastic. Plastic includes, the little filter on the spout of your sink that you can unscrew if you're so inclined. And it makes it like an aerator, makes the water. That's made out of plastic. Anything you have in your house, which is very popular, made out of Teflon. So Teflon is plastic. Teflon is an amazing plastic. Teflon, here's a little bit of trivia. Teflon was invented as a way to seal uranium when they were making nuclear atom bombs. So the Teflon was so good at nothing leaking through that they used it to seal the big bins that they make the uranium in. The Teflon is a very strong, but it's plastic. And since it's plastic, somebody was talking to me today about an Instapot that they had. And I didn't know, do you know what that is? Or is that something that was in America? But Instapot is like this wonder thing, that electric thing. It works as a pressure cooker, it works as a crock pot, it works as, you can do everything in an Instapot. It's a very popular appliance. So these Instapots, they come in two ways. I checked this out today. One way is completely only stainless steel. Okay, maybe you can kosher that for Pesach. Another way is Teflon, nonstick Teflon. So that Teflon, you cannot kosher. Also, by the way, Teflon breaks down at a certain amount of heat. That's why you have to replace it every few years. I think it's 280 degrees Fahrenheit. It starts to break down. So these are examples of plastics which we are machmir on Pesach to treat as ceramic or as earthenware, and therefore you can't kosher it. On the other hand, if your countertop, if you're lucky enough that your countertop is made out of granite, so granite is stone, and stone is a very kosherable item. So if you have a granite countertop, you simply have to follow my instructions this evening. You don't have to cover it. You don't have to do anything with it. You just have to clean it and kosher it. You're fine. Many people don't know what they have. They don't know if their countertop is made out of stone. I guess if you bought it and you paid a lot for granite, it's probably granite. But if you just moved into a house, a lot of people don't know what their countertop is. And here, I'll tell you something, the Israelis actually invented something called Caesar stone. So Caesar stone, or shayish, as people here call shayish, is actually stone, but they call it shayish. It's not really stone. What that is, the Caesar stone is, it's like salami. They take all kinds of minerals and all kinds of stones and all kinds of plastics and everything, and they put it into a machine. Out comes Caesar stone. And it's beautiful. It's a beautiful material. It doesn't absorb, and it looks like, it could look like granite. It could look very nice. So it's not, but you can't kosher it. Why? Because it's, to my investigation, about 20% plastic. And you can't kosher plastic for Pesach. For all year round, I'm not talking about all year round now. I can tell you what to do for all year round, but for Pesach, we don't kosher plastic. So this is the big exception. You can kosher everything. Wait, I'm running out of time. You can kosher everything metal, nothing ceramic, and nothing plastic. Now, one other item, which is glass. Glass. Now, glass, you can't kosher glass, but you don't have to kosher glass because glass is one of the few products that was invented or became normal to use in post-biblical times, which the Chacham gave it a rule. And they said that glass is so smooth and so non-absorbent, it's just such a wonderful material, glass, that you don't need to kosher it. All you have to do is wash it out. Now, that being said, usually we try to get separate glasses for Pesach. That's the Minhag Yisrael, to get separate glasses for Pesach, have Pesach glasses. But if you can't, call me, WhatsApp me, and I'll tell you how to do it, because we're out of time now, unless we meet again. But so glass, you don't have to. Now, let me just say one of the difficult. Let's just say two things. If I have another minute, if you have to go, you can leave. I don't mind. The way you kosher, we talked about the oven. If you have Formica countertops, you have to cover it. If you have a stainless steel sink, you kosher it. And the way you kosher it is take boiling hot water, like let's say from a kumkum, like boiling hot water from a tea kettle, fresh boiled, and cover every inch of your sink with that water. You can't, it's not that the water falls from one place to another. You have to actually hit every part of your sink, and your stainless steel sink is kosher. You might want to, the faucet part of it, you might want to get a new plastic thing, because what happens there is if you have a hot pot of chametz, pasta, like the example we're using tonight, the smoke goes up into that and it becomes chametz stick. So you kosher it by taking some boiling hot water and putting it up. It's hard to pour upwards, but you put it sort of into a glass, and that's fine. And everybody's makel on the little plastic thing, but kosher it anyway. It's plastic, it's rubber. I'm not sure exactly what's going on in there. That's your countertops. If it's granite, stone, kosher it. Otherwise, cover it. Sink, if it's stainless steel, kosher it. Otherwise, cover it. Your stovetop, most of them today are stainless steel, I think. So the stainless steel, the way to cover kosher stovetop, with the burners, is really very easy. What you do there is you just simply take a piece of very thick aluminum foil. They like the thick, not otherwise it won't work. You buy it in the Pesach store, piece of aluminum foil, or like blech, like we used to use in the olden days. You put it on top of all 4 burners, not including the handles, not including the knobs, rather, and you turn on all 4 burners for 7 minutes. And when you turn them on for 7 minutes, it gets so hot under there that everything under it is kosher all the way down. You don't have to scrub it. You don't have to clean it. It's destroyed. You've destroyed every drop of chametz that could be there. If you put it on top of the handle, the knobs also, they will melt. That's why I'm saying I'm not recommending to do that. Let me speak about the microwave, and then I'm going to keep to my time. The microwave, a very handy appliance. You can use it on Pesach, easy to kasher. Because a microwave is very interesting. Working with the principle of kibolo kachpolta, like the heat went in, that's how, like the chametz went in, that's how it comes out. A microwave oven is not really an oven. You can cook something in the microwave and take it out, and then a minute later you could touch the wall and it's maybe warm. That heat is not coming from the oven, from the walls of the oven as it does in a real oven. The heat's because the food gets hot. It's microwavable, and then that heat goes to the walls of the oven. So it's not a big deal. All you have to do with the microwave is wash it out. Wash it out very well. You want to be machmir, spritz it with Windex. And this is what I do. This is my kunz. You wash out the microwave. I take there's a ceramic plate inside of it. Can't kosher ceramic. Cover it with cling wrap. That works out well there. Or take it out. It doesn't affect the working of the microwave. And then what I do is I boil some water on the stove until it's real hot. And I put that water, I don't pour it in the microwave, I just put it in the microwave and turn it on for a few minutes, and the whole microwave fills up with steam. So I've kashered it in a number of different ways. I kashered it by cleaning it. I've covered the glass plate on the bottom. And in case you're worried about some steam of chametz that went into the walls, and now it's going to come back at you on Pesach, so that's what the glass of water is for. And now we've taken care of the microwave, the stovetop, the refrigerator, the oven, the countertops.
Oh, the voice that said, because people kasher between
Say it again.
the turn thing, that's glass.
It's
Well, I
glass.
don't know if it's real. I don't know if
with
it's real glass. I don't know if it's real glass. It looks like glass.
right.
Is that kasherable?
No, that's why I said cover it with cling wrap, because that's made out of a composite of glass and ceramic. That's why it lasts so long. So that you have to cover it, shrink wrap it, cover it with saran wrap. Don't put aluminum foil, but you cover it with saran wrap, and that's what you do for the 7 days. You can't kosher it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Let me just say one last announcement. There was always a rumor that heat-proof glass has pieces of metal going through it. What I didn't talk about, but that was deliberate, was glass top ovens. So if you have one, I don't want to waste everybody's time, but if you have a glass top oven, you can call me. But Duralex, Pyrex, all those kind of things, they used to say has like metal in it. That's why it can handle the heat so well. So I want to say something about that. It doesn't. I checked into this extensively. It has no metal in it. It doesn't have any more metal in glass. It's just heat treated. Glass, the reason why glass breaks when you pour boiling hot water in it is because it can't handle the change of temperature so quickly. If it's very hot and you pour cold water, it could break also. It's because it contracts and expands. But it doesn't have any metal in it. So that's the same as any other glass, which I didn't speak about so much because I really want you to get new glasses for Pesach. Not these glasses, just get new glasses for Pesach. And I think that's the right recommendation. Also, I just want to mention that if you have an urn, like a Shabbos urn, so you put water in there. Water is not chametz. If you cleaned it out with chametz vinegar, then it's chametz stick. And there's very, very little you can do. Get another one for Pesach. But if you're careful not to clean out with chametz vinegar, use Pesach vinegar, for instance, which is a good idea to buy a couple of bottles of Pesach vinegar to use to clean out your urn. So then it doesn't become chametz. And the spigot, the outside doesn't become chametz. You just wash it off. And the only thing is maybe the spigot, like if you would make oatmeal right under it, if you do that, usually people don't because it's for Shabbos. But if you would make oatmeal or something, so then you have to kosher that spigot, and I think it's just a chumrah, but you take a cup of boiling hot water and put it up to it and kosher, even though it's plastic, but it's not a kli rishon, so we're not makbid on it.
Is melach limon chametz?
No, that's a good thing to use.
So you can use it to clean the urn?
Yeah. A lot of people use vinegar. Vinegar is often a wheat derivative. So
Yeah.
You got to be careful with vinegar. Also, in my investigation, I'm just saving you phone calls, aluminum pans, chad pami, which these days are made for the rich and famous. So these aluminum pans have nothing that's chametz or trade for anything in it. It's the olden days where they coated it with some oil or something. It doesn't happen anymore. It's just strictly aluminum pans with some type of a chemical coating, which has no chametz or no trade. So you don't need a hechsher on those. You don't need a hechsher on aluminum foil. All those things are fine. Let me say this: my wife is doing this great service of Pesach products, where you can, where if you WhatsApp her, she checks these products out for you, and she's put a lot of time and work into it. So you can use that service if it's a halachic thing. So I'm here. Feel free to ask me. I wish everybody a good night. I could talk all night, but I doubt if you could listen.
Rabbi Haber, the convection oven, you said there might be a problem.
Convection oven, the problem there you have with a convection oven is how do you clean the fan? And you have a very similar problem with the fan on top of your, you don't want to take apart the fan because you're going to break it. So like every one is different, which is like every fan is made a little bit different. But I think the right thing to do is to take some spritz and spritz it into the hole, clean it the best you can on the outside, but then spritz some stuff on the inside without breaking it. And I think that way we've gotten rid of all the actual chametz that's there. So that's what makes the convection oven different. If you have, I see them more in America than I see them here. If you have on top of your stovetop, you have an exhaust. What are they called? There's a word for it. What are they called?
Exhaust fan.
Okay.
Exhaust fan.
Okay, so if you have one of those, this is also they don't have.
Extractor fan.
Okay, they don't have.
Extractor fan.
They don't have them as much here as they have them in America. America's like standard equipment here. For some reason, it's not. But those things are problematic because those things, like all your chametz, the steam is all going into them. And then when you cook on Pesach tikka food, the steam goes into them again and comes down as chametz. So what you have to do is, first of all, don't use that thing on Pesach. And if you want to use it, so you have to get new filters for the fans. There's a piece that goes on top. And if you can't do that, so you should cover it with aluminum foil, which is the same as not using it. Just cover it with aluminum foil. But those things are problematic because that gets a direct hit from your chametz. By the way, it also gets a direct hit from your milchiks and from your fleishiks. So there's a lot to talk about those extractor fans. Okay, I'm going to leave everything. I hope I covered a lot of things. I think I got through the whole kitchen.
Then, excuse me, then after I spritz it, I could put it on self-cleaning.
Right. Oh, if you put it on self-clean, you don't have to spritz it.
Oh, okay.
If the self-clean takes care of everything.
Even the fan part.
Exactly right.
Oh, okay.
If you have an induction stovetop, so those are kind of cool and they look nice. I have no idea how to kosher that. I don't know if that can be kosher. And if you have a glass top stovetop, not so clear to me how you should kosher that either. You have to think about each case, but you can't just cover it with aluminum foil because it's going to crack it. So I think the only thing, I don't know, I'm not sure what to do, and that's why I don't want to talk about it right now. Not 100% sure what to do. But if you have a regular stovetop, you can kosher it. Anyone last
Rabbi
question?
Haber?
Yes.
I just want to ask you, sorry, the water machines or the had some cold water. I think you said, just to
The
refresh.
cold water is not a problem at all.
The hot water.
The bisheen is not a problem at all. The hot water spigot, if you use it to make chametz things like oatmeal, so then don't use it on Pesach. Just don't use it on Pesach. Shut the hot water part off. If you don't use it, if you only use it for coffee and most teas, like you use straightforward tea, so it doesn't become chametz with this tea.
Okay, thank you so
Okay.
much.
Thank you, everybody, for coming. I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you.
Feel free
Thank
to
you.
WhatsApp me or whatever, any way you want, and I will try the best I can to respond in that.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much.
Thank you.
My
Thank you so much.
pleasure.
Thank you very